everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Everyday Theology. I am here not with Guy Parkerson. Guy's a loser and not here today. So we're here with John Muth, our wonderful fill-in. How's it going, John?
It's good. It's good. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here to step in. Guy's busy. Been doing some remodeling in his home, and we appreciate him, but he's not able to make it this week.
You guys are always talking about Guy's hair, and so I didn't even try. I wore a hat.
Yeah, well, you might as well cover up your hair because it will pale in comparison.
It will. Yeah, so I'm not even
epic.
Not even going to try.
Yeah, good for you. They're very smart.
Yeah. So today we're talking about Acts chapter 6. Mm-hmm. That's where we spent all of our time on Sunday. Now, as you prepare for these sermons, you spend some time prepping. Maybe like 10 minutes.
Yeah, just the shower that morning.
Yeah,
I just think through what I'm going to say.
Yeah,
and I pretty much wing it when I get up.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. No. There's
you write it into the bathroom mirror and take a picture of it.
I do. Yep. And those are my sermon notes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you spend a lot of time studying, and because you want to be responsible with the text. So I'm curious to know, what was your takeaway?
Yeah.
As you studied and as you prepared for the sermon.
Yeah, Acts 6, 1-7 is a great text. So helpful, again, as you watch how the Lord works through all these chapters. That's the great part of working your way through a book sequentially. With these sermons, you get to see these connections. And now there's this turn in chapter 6. They're facing this problem. And how they address the problem is so good that I've been a church leader for a long time. I've been doing this for over 21 years. Full time of leading churches, and there are a lot of ways to lead churches. Yeah, really, there's a ton of ways. This is better. That was my primary takeaway: is they face a problem. The apostles acknowledge their responsibility as the key leaders of the church to maintain, prayer and the ministry of the word, and they recruit a group of faithful, qualified men to lead this ministry and to meet this need. That is a way better way of leading a church. Yeah, it's the more biblical way. Yeah, and contrasts of how you've done it at different times over the years. Those are just broken ways. They're less than ideal.
Yeah, I was thinking about that a lot. On Sunday, I was listening to the sermon, because I think if I was preaching it, and I would have come to the same conclusions, and probably had these few moments where I just kind of sat back and sighed, just thinking about the past and some of the decisions I've made, and just the things that I prioritized in ministry, and so I know that we have a similar background because we've worked together before. So
very similar background. So let's talk about
identical
this for a bit, because this is now the third church that you and I have served in together. Now that's quite something.
Third time's a charm.
It is.
Say.
And our folks here at Broadway know that. At least many of them, I think, would, that we've served together for a long time and in different environments that I just can't get away from you, and you just can't get away from me. Apparently, the Lord wants us to do this stuff together. So we finally just given in and embraced that. Yeah. So we served together for about a decade at a church in the St. Louis area that at one point was smaller, but then grew quite rapidly and got to be quite large. And we were two of, I think, 27 staff members at the time. Yeah. 5 worship services on a weekend. We did that. We moved to Boston together. We planted a church there in the greater Boston area. And then after I came here with my mom being ill, and then numerous years later, you're here. Yeah. And year and a half now, right? That you've been here, a little over a year and a half?
Yeah, year and a half.
That you now have been serving with us at Broadway. So we've got very similar ministry experiences and this journey that both of us, sometimes together and even separately, the Lord has led us through to draw now different conclusions and new conclusions about how the church should be led. So talk about that a little bit of how things used to be, how we used to think about church leadership and how we think about it now, because they're very different.
Well, I think this passage falls into a category. Then I think several passages in the Bible that we feel like, okay, this is very simple, and we think, well, that was a different culture. They, that model of ministry, of course, was different, and so I think, and I don't think I've ever said those words about this particular passage, but I definitely lived it out, and also my personality type. I'm a little obsessive. I have the tendency, maybe sometimes
a little bit
controlling. I like things done a certain way. So does my dad.
Yeah,
it's
genetic.
It's genetic, sure.
It's the way it is.
And so I think early on in ministry, and there's also the environment that we were in, and that I was in early in ministry. There was this pressure too. It's to do the things. There wasn't. I didn't have my immediate supervisor saying, why don't you, rather than you do this, why don't you have someone else do it? And so there was just kind of this. That was the culture of our church. That was the mindset. And that was I think more importantly, I don't want to talk just about that church in particular.
Yeah, we did this.
It was me. And so I'd have ideas for something new, and it's like, well, I have to do it.
Yeah.
And I still carry some of that with me.
Yeah.
And so there's this journey too. And you know what that led to there was burnout.
Yeah.
Like, it was really unhealthy. And a lot of people not using their gifts. And I'll never know that. I'll never really know what could have been. But I think about that sometimes. And then, when we moved to Boston, there was this kind of departure from that. It's like, we're going to build something different. We're going to set the tone. But I think you and I haven't talked about this in a long time, but I remember we kind of had this mentality that, if we build it, they will come. We're going to take how we've done church, and we're going to do it here in this context, and it's just going to work, and people are going to come to it. And so we're going to
open the doors, and they're going to show up.
I still kind of have that mentality, and it's taken years and years and years, and it's to be broken, and it's to be broken of that mentality, and it's still happening. But it was very humbling when we opened the doors of that church, and that wasn't the case.
Not near as many people as we thought were
They weren't like flocking to the doors.
Yeah.
But really what would have built a healthy church there is this model.
Yeah.
It's commitment to the word, and it's equipping people to do the things that they're passionate about, and to find their purpose in the church and as the body of Christ.
Yeah.
And that's what builds a strong church. But I think the mentality of we've got to just get as many people in the door as possible. There's more of a focus on the immediate. We just need to get them baptized and then move on to the next thing.
And drop them in a group, and we don't think of them again because there's a couple hundred new people at the door who are ready to come in and do the same thing.
Yeah,
and
that's
we're
not
just treading water.
That's baptizing people and having a large church aren't necessarily bad things.
Those are awesome things.
But that can very easily feed this negative.
Well, when you have
of ministry,
the prevailing way that the American church functions. Again, not exclusively. There are a lot of faithful pastors and faithful churches doing great things, but there is this general way of doing church in American culture of you've got the paid professionals, and we put on a show on Sunday, and we offer quality programs and events and all that are relevant to you and your family's needs, and we open up our doors. We offer this plethora of, here's a menu of here's all the stuff that we do, and your job as church people is just to come to all of our stuff. So you come fill the room, we'll put on the show, and you'll benefit. You'll go home going, oh man, that was great. And we'll go home patting ourselves on the back going, wow, like that was awesome because we filled the room. And we call that done. Like that's ministry.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not. That's any concert venue. That's filling a room for a TED Talk. That's Any organization can do that kind of stuff. The difference of the church is everybody plays a part. It's the body of Christ. So, when I get up and walk out of this room, my whole body's involved. Every part of it is going to be involved in some way, active or passive, to make sure I can actually do that, not fall down or whatever, which still may happen. It's a thing. That's how the church is, right? It's not just, all right, we're going to do this and it's going to be fun. We're going to have people here and pat you on the back and see you later. No, everything that we do, everybody plays an active or a passive part to make sure this ministry is being done. Needs are being met. The gospel is proclaimed. All the things that the churches are called to do. And it's very clear that it works. I mean, that's what verse 7 is about. I mean, the word of God spreads and all these new people are coming to faith because when you function this way as God's people, it works. This is God's designed way to make this happen.
Well, and even in verse 7, it's important you have number of the disciples continue to multiply greatly, and a great many of the priests were becoming obedient to the faith. I'm really glad that obviously you landed there, and I wasn't sure if you were going to spend time talking about that passage, and I'm so glad you did, because I think that's very important, is that you have people Jewish priests who were following the law and who were religious. Their Christianity is different. It's so radically different than the culture, than other religions, which we talked about that at our apologetics conference. So
right. Don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Come to our next apologetics conference. So here's what's interesting.
Such a powerful testimony.
I think about that. You've got these Jewish priests and ancient Judaism, all that's happening there. When you go into the temple in the first century, do you know what you do as an average, normal Jew in that environment? Nothing. The priest does everything. So they're offering the sacrifice, they're saying the words, they're reading from the Torah, they're doing all this stuff, and you're just there as the recipient of it. That's all you do. Now, you have the responsibility to live righteously and bring the animal and do all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's the priest's job to take care of all that stuff. So it's interesting that it would say that immediately following the apostles going, no, we're not going to do everything. You guys are. So this is for all of us. Maybe there's this attraction, even from the religious leaders of Judaism going, boy, that's a way better way to do this. I mean, look at that. To get everybody involved, that's a much healthier model. We're not used to that. And they're walking away from their Jewish heritage and embracing Christ because they see the witness of a New Testament church. It's just a better way to do it.
And I think I've had to get away from this. It's been me, having clenched fists early in ministry and just slowly opening to let go of some things. So what if it doesn't get done the exact way that I would do it? And so I've definitely fed this problem over the years, and God has convicted me of that. And even thinking about, we were joking about Guy, but if I were to look at this even as like delegating from a time standpoint, Guy reached out to me about helping editing a certain video that I do every month, which really takes me about 30-40 minutes. Now, from a time standpoint, I've spent more time talking with you about this podcast and here filming it right now than it would take me to
edit that video.
It would take him to edit that video, or take me to edit that video. And so I'm not really gaining time per se, but here's someone who has this giftedness and will probably bring something to the video that I can't see, but it's also given him an opportunity to serve this church and serve his congregation, and that has a ripple effect that we just can't see.
And which is better? For you to sit in your office and do it, you can knock it out. I mean, you're very gifted in editing videos, and it doesn't take you long. You've got a lot of experience doing it. You doing that because, well, you're the paid professional, so that's your job. You do that. Or you've got a guy in the church, his name is Guy, and who loves the Lord.
Never gets old.
It doesn't get old, especially that his son is also named Guy.
Yeah.
So he's the guy whose dad is Guy, and they're guys.
They're guys.
Yeah, how great is that? That you have a guy in the church who loves the Lord, who's gifted in editing videos. I mean, I've seen videos that he's edited. He's very good at it. Who then can utilize that skill to serve, not you, because he's saving you 30, 40 minutes. He's serving the whole church, hundreds of people that he's serving. I mean, what personal benefit he's getting from that. The entire church is being, whether they know it's him or not.
Yeah.
The whole church is being blessed because of that. And if church leaders decide to hold everything to themselves, that clenched fist, I mean, we're stealing that blessing from them and from the whole church. Well, that's not right for us to do that just because, well, I would have used a different transition from one piece of the video to another. Well, who cares?
Yeah.
For crying out loud, this is better. It's just a better way.
Yeah. And, we'll transition to something else here in a minute, but this also makes me think about the future here. We've had a lot of conversations about this, but as, in the past, you staff. There's a certain, there's statistics out there for, size of church versus number of staff.
Yep.
And, there's sometimes, there's this need. And the first reaction is, well, who can we hire to do this? Instead of who's already passionate about this and gifted in this area and can volunteer and do it, or what group of people can do this. And so as we grow here, we have no plans to add. That'll be a last resort.
Yep.
Adding a staff member.
Yep. But when the pain of not having that staff person is so great, it's just overwhelming that, hey, these volunteers are dying on the vine because they need someone to help resource them and equip them better. Fill in the blank, whatever the issues are. But that won't be the first answer to the problem. It's not the first solution. It's the last solution. No, there's hundreds of people here that God, if the Lord is calling us to some sort of ministry to do something, then He's provided somebody who's already here to take care of that. That's going to be their ministry, their way to serve in God's kingdom. Why would we hire that out? That's just goofy.
Yeah, I read this book, and we talked about this. And my former boss at the last church I served at talked about this a lot. But and it was in a book too. I can't remember the book, but it's basically I see in you conversations.
Yes,
that's important for us to have as leaders, but I think also for everyone in the body, to be able to take someone say to someone that they have a close relationship with, to say, I just think you'd be really good at this. That's just one way that we can encourage each other, that we can spur one another on towards love and good works. Say, have you considered getting involved in this ministry, or have you considered starting that ministry? I hear you talk about this a lot as a need, and sometimes that's all it takes for someone, is that little bit of a push, a little bit of an encouragement from someone that they know, love, and trust, to say, maybe I should do that.
Yep. Well, those of us who are on the paid side of things, who are in that category of paid church leader, all of that, how did we get into that as a vocation? One, there's that internal calling from the Lord, and we feel kind of compelled to do that.
Yeah, that's important.
Sure, yeah. I mean, vital. It's what keeps you in the days when you don't want to keep doing it. Is okay. God called me to do this. It's okay. I'll ignore what that person said. Yeah. But it's that external somebody or a group of somebodies came alongside us at some point and said, "Hey, and have you ever considered doing this and serving the church in a full-time capacity in that way, and this be your job?"
Those, for me, those
are life-giving conversations.
The volunteers in our student ministry.
Yeah.
And my youth pastor, who was paid, staff's part-time staff, but it was those other adults who volunteered that were it was like a second family to me in high school, especially. And it was those people who said, I think this is something you should pray about. This is something that I see in you They didn't maybe say those words specifically, but those are powerful words.
I mean, I could take you to the stretch of interstate when I was in the car with my youth pastor growing up. His name's Jim Quick, and Jim initiated a conversation with me as a high school kid. Hey, you should do this. What I'm currently doing right now, like this is my job. Yeah, we just did something. I don't even remember where we were coming from. And have you thought it? I think you could do that. I mean, so really, it's all Jim's fault.
Yeah.
So if you don't like something, call Jim. Yeah. I can give you his number if you'd like.
Yeah, I've got it too.
Yeah, you know Jim. Yeah, just give him a ring. Let him know.
Ian did this. You told him to do
This is your fault.
in a car 20 years ago.
Yeah, more than 20.
40 years ago.
Less than that.
Okay.
Somewhere between 20 and 40.
All right, it's there. All right, let's transition really quick and talk about deacons. So, this is what did you call it? The proof text.
This is the proof text.
Proof text. I feel smart. This is a proof text for deacons and what our understanding of, we don't have the office of deacon here. It's not part of our church structure, but a lot of churches do.
Correct.
And this is the foundational text for that. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, some will look at Acts 6:1-7 and go, this is the choosing of the first deacons. And it's this office in the church that people hold. It's a board that gets together and votes and makes decisions on stuff. And you've got the deacon over buildings and grounds and the deacon over fill in the blank, whatever. Because that's what and they're elected by the congregation because that's what's happening here. Well, there's a lot more going on in this. So the word deacon, this position in the church, is a Greek word, diakonos. Which comes up 3 times in the text. So in the sermon, towards the end, I talked about one ministry isn't more valuable than another because they're all called serving. The 3 times the word serve is used in this text is the Greek word deacon.
Right.
So it's verb. Cool. The noun form is used. So the 7 men who are chosen here, they're never called the deacons. So it's false to go to this passage to say, oh, well, this is how we get this office of deacon. They're never called that. It's not a group of 7 men, which there are some churches who do that. They elect a group of 7 men to be the deacon board. These 7 men were chosen simply for this particular ministry.
Yeah, they are serving that one need.
That's it. Right. They're
Ministry
not doing this whole thing. They're doing this ministry, daily distribution of food to widows. That's all they're in charge of. So it's not this power position that has all this influence. They're servants. That's it. That's all a deacon is. Now, we've turned it into this whole other thing of an office with a board and voting.
Amazing how that? I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah,
isn't that amazing how that happens? They're not amazing.
We complicate it organizationally.
We do.
And it's the American way,
it is.
Business structure and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that's not what's happening here. 7 men are chosen with spiritual qualifications to be ministry leaders. That's it. They're just serving.
Yeah.
Really in a leadership capacity because they're in charge of this great ministry to do that. So we have deacons here.
Yeah.
Anybody who leads a ministry here is a deacon.
And we never say that.
No.
Well, maybe we should.
Well, sadly, there's some baggage to that word, but I agree with you. I think we probably should. Bible words for Bible things. We're not scared of Bible words.
See, and that would actually help if you don't remember someone's name when you pass them in the hall. You just be like, "Hey, deacon."
Hey, deacon.
Hey, deaconess.
Yeah, whatever. So we have deacons because we have ministry leaders and great servants who are in charge of these things. What we don't have is a deacon board, where they all gather together monthly or quarterly or whatever and make decisions for the church at large, because that was never their purpose.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't have that.
Yeah, and you said this in the sermon, which is very practical. I love it. You said take responsibility for something you care about.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they did, right? The apostles do this because they care about the ministry of the word and prayer, and the 7 men do this. They're Greeks who are fixing a Greek problem.
And I love that. It doesn't even really require much explanation. It's just, oh, I get that.
Yeah. What do you care about? Great. Take responsibility for it. That's your role in the body of Christ. That's my role in the body of Christ.
Yeah.
That's everybody's role in the body of Christ.
Yeah.
What the Lord causes you to care about, you take responsibility and make sure it gets done. Mm-hmm. Real simple.
But I think there's been this pervasive and we've seen this, this pervasive attitude, and I don't know, I can't speak to churches in other cultures, but I just say the American church.
Right.
This might be more of a universal problem, but just, there's this need over here. I think that ought to get done. I'm going to go tell Ian, hey, I've been thinking of this. I think we should do this. And how many? I mean, I'm sure I've lost count. How many times I said that's great. I think you should maybe lead this, or you should. Think about how we could go about doing this, and how you could be a part of it and lead it, and who could help you. And then you never hear anything.
Right. Yeah. It's crickets
again
after that. Because again, if the Lord has put this on your heart to care about, that's probably the Lord calling you to be in charge of it, to make sure it happens.
And this has been all of ministry too. There's people that happens to, and then you come to find out, you hear from a person who heard from another person that they're upset because their idea wasn't supported.
Right. Which isn't true. Well, their idea wasn't supported by them. The person whose idea it was. So the role of church leaders isn't for you to come in, have a meeting, and go, all right, dump, here's all this stuff that I think you should do. We pick all that stuff up, we take it, now we go start this new thing, and oh, what a great idea you had. Nope, that's nowhere in the text. If the apostles did that here, Acts 6 looks very different. So that's not the precedent that's set. The precedent that's set is, hey, we're doing this, which is something only we can do. So you do something that you can do. So you take care of this issue. So now if somebody comes in and says, hey, I think we should do XYZ ministry, awesome. Why don't you put some thought into how that could look?
Yeah.
Put some thought into some people who could help
put
you
it on paper.
That. Yeah, put it on paper, spell it all out. And we're here to support. We're here to help you, not to run it for you. We're here as the church to come alongside you and help you fulfill your ministry.
Yeah.
And boy, that really filters out.
It does. But it also, we were talking about this before, but someone comes with we'll talk about this in a second, but man, I really wish that we could, I think we should send cards to people when they're sick or when they're going through something tough. I think it is important that those things are filtered, because then we can say, you know what, there's someone already doing that.
Right.
Why don't you come be a part of it?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of ministry and a lot of things that are happening here that aren't necessarily public. They're not things that we're talked about all the time.
They're not know about. Right.
Yeah, like we were talking about Kathy Beckmeyer, who had that very, very same conviction. She makes cards at home for a hobby.
And they're really nice.
Really good at it.
Better than anything you get at Hallmark.
Yeah. And so she thought, man, we should send cards from the elders to people, as we know about, there's prayer requests or things, people that are sick, or to, we just sent a bunch to graduates. She makes all these cards, and she didn't come to your office and say, I think the church should send cards, which if she would have come and sat down with me, here's probably what I would have said. I've been like, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right. But no, I'm saying I probably would have been, okay, who on staff could buy the cards? I would have started saying these things. Who could buy the cards?
Yep.
What system could we have in place to decide who gets the cards? And thankfully none of that happened.
Yeah.
And Kathy just said, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to make these cards. I'm going to send them to church on Sunday with my husband in a box. And he's going to lay them out. All the elders are going to sign them. And they're going to get mailed by our office the next morning.
Yep. Awesome.
It's so much better.
That's deacon work right there.
Yeah.
Saw a need and stepped up to meet it. That's what deacons do.
Yeah.
And ministry is accomplished and lives are being changed. I've been the recipient of those cards. How awesome is that?
All right.
I mean, they're super encouraging.
I got a few more. That's what deacons do.
That's right.
This is a segment of our podcast.
That's what deacons do.
We just made it up just now. That's what deacons do. Christmas parade last year. Our church historically has been part of the parade, having a float in the parade. One of the 40, what do you say, 40 parades that Mattoon does.
I mean, we're known. We have a lot of parades here in our town.
Celebrate.
Yes.
Celebrate
and
good
it's
times.
Cool. Yeah, it's not a condemnation. It's just unique.
Yeah.
You know, that's cool.
And, we haven't been involved in the parade for several years. I think there was some confusion in the past, or so, I think the staff did a lot of it.
They did,
spent a lot of
ran
time
the whole thing
on the floats, and so it was the light parade this year, and there were some people who said, I think we should be involved in the parade, and say, great, will you do it?
Yeah,
and they did.
They did, and it was amazing. The float was better than what we would have done anyway. They recruited volunteers to walk in the parade.
Yeah.
The church provided some resources to help, and helped communicate some things. But they took the primary ownership of all. They did 99% of all the stuff, and there were people who came to church because of conversations they had with people at the parade.
Yep.
That had never happened before. Like, we had no record of that at all.
Yeah.
So it's like, why are we spinning our wheels doing this and all of that? There's all this time and energy and money. But a group of volunteers take care of it. And with very little support from the church as a whole, like corporately, and all of a sudden people show up. Like, oh yeah, I talked to somebody at the parade and I'm here.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere.
Yep.
That's what deacons do.
That's what deacons do.
Yes. It was amazing. They did a great job.
We partnered with a ministry called Safe Families.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of starting off slow, and there's several of us involved here, and they have someone that oversees their ministry for the whole county. That's kind of our point person. But for our church, because we're Safe Families Church, and we promote them, and we've got volunteers here, and it's basically foster care prevention and respite care. And Hannah Ellermitz said, she asked me, she's like, do you want to kind of be the point person for Safe Families? Do you want me to do it? And that was like a test, because I think 5 years ago I would have been like, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. But in my mind it would have been, she's got enough on her plate. She's got a lot going on in her life.
Mom with young kids. Yeah.
And so I remember very, with trepidation, emailing her or texting her back and saying, would you be willing to do that? And she said, absolutely, I'd love to.
Yep.
But it was this, I needed to be able to say, have the guts to say, do this, or ask, would you do this?
Yeah.
And she did.
Well, and that ministry is better because she's leading it.
It is.
And it's better because you're not leading it.
It is.
I mean, no offense to you, but she's doing a great job.
Yep.
In a way that's different and better than what you would have done.
Yep, because that's what deacons do.
That's what deacons do.
Blair Dosh, Meal Train. We used to have a meal train here, meal train ministry, providing meals for our families when there are surgeries, new babies, deaths in the family, any number of things. And I guess, I don't know how long it's been since we've had a meal train ministry, because I haven't been here. But Blair Dosh said,
it's been a while.
Hey, we haven't had a meal train ministry in a long time. I want to restart the meal train ministry. It did. She bypassed all that stuff. She didn't even say, "Hey, I think we should have a meal train ministry," and it didn't even require us to say, "Hey, what would you think of leading that?" She said, "Hey, I think we need a meal train ministry, and I'd like to lead it. Is that good? Is that okay?" And we said, "Absolutely."
Let me pray about that. Yes, yes, it is,
and that's blessed a lot of people.
Yeah. Well,
and it's all behind the scenes stuff that you wouldn't see.
You wouldn't ever know. Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, my father passed away, which is why we haven't done podcasts for a couple of weeks. So we've been dealing, he lived with us for a month. We dealt with the end of his life and funeral and all that kind of stuff. Well, that ministry blessed our family for a week. Mm-hmm. We had different church families drop off food at our house every early evening for dinner that night. Awesome. In fact, last night, family dinner, we had leftovers from that we had frozen. Nice. It was just fantastic. We had food everywhere. It was amazing, and it really, it was really good.
Yeah.
So, people benefit tremendously from. That's what deacons do.
Yeah,
it was amazing. I mean, how cool is that those things get done? I mentioned to you earlier, Kurt Strader. Kurt now serves as one of our elders, but before that, and still, Kurt runs our security team.
Yeah.
So when you come to the building, you should feel safe here because we've got quite a beefy security team.
You should feel safe because I'm not in charge of the security team. If I was,
absolutely,
it would be subpar.
Yeah,
because I don't know much about security.
Kurt's an expert in it. I'm pretty sure he could kill me in 14 different ways with his thumb. He's got great experience in all of that. And, for years there was this staff person is overseeing it, then that staff person, and who's in charge of all this. And I remember meeting at Starbucks with Kurt a few years ago and him saying, I got it. I'm just going to run it. And it's been the best it's ever been ever since then.
Yeah.
Because that's what deacons do. They just step up. Here's a need. I can meet it. I'll take care of it.
Yep.
And now we're not figuring out when to communicate, how to communicate, how often. Kurt takes care of all of that. And he's way better at it than we are.
Yeah.
it's amazing.
That's what deacons do.
And now we're safer because of it. Because that's what deacons do.
That's what deacons do. We got a couple more. Guy, we'll gush on him a little bit.
We like to poke fun at Guy when he's not here. That's certainly the case.
But we'll gush on him a little bit because he's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
But he saw this need for, and it might be something that you've thought. I know you've thought about doing a podcast before and talking about theology and digging deeper, but it's like, it's hard to find the time. It's hard to think of adding one more thing. But
coming up with what are we going to talk about?
Right.
Questions. I mean, it's not just sitting in front of a camera and having this record. There's a lot more that goes on.
Right.
Pre and post this part of it.
Yep.
That I don't even know how to do a lot of that stuff. Guy does it.
Yeah. And
Guy stepped up.
And this isn't something that I'm sure there's a lot of people that listen. They're listening now that maybe you didn't think before. Like, oh man, this is a big need. We should have a.
Right.
I wish that my church would go a little deeper into this in a podcast format, and I could listen during the week. I mean, I'm venture to say that crossed no one's mind.
Probably the case. But it crossed Guy's mind.
But it crossed Guy's mind.
It did.
And it turns out it is a need. It's a need that not a lot of people think about.
Yep.
And because once you're on this steady diet of theology and you're growing and you're learning, it's like you just want more of it.
Yep.
And
he came to me and said, we should do this.
Yeah.
And in this particular instance, I play a role because I'm the one doing the preaching. Because the things we talk about kind of dovetail off of that. But he's the one who stepped in, and he's sitting, sometimes even in the front row, he's sitting, and he brings his notebook to church, and he takes copious notes, and he's writing stuff in his Bible. And he comes in when we film already prepared with the list of things we're going to talk about and questions. And
unlike today, which it was,
right.
Hey, what do you want to talk about?
What are we going to talk about? What's the agenda here? He comes in with that already set. And I mean, what a gift that is. So I'm able to just step in and do this part. He's the one that does all the real work on all of this. And
you know why?
Because
that's what deacons do.
What deacons do. He's a great, and we benefit because of all of that. Yeah. And again, we've got dozens and dozens and dozens of examples like this of, whether it's Kurt or Blair or Guy, or, Hannah, the other ones that we've mentioned, whether it's Tim and Donna Dye, who are, doing the parade thing, Kevin and Kelly Cook, who are doing the parade thing with them. It was kind of like a group of people, among others. There are a bunch of people doing that. This is what makes a church great. Yeah. This is what makes its ministry rich and full. Mm-hmm. It's not a super talented staff that's filled with key executive leaders who are gifted in all these different ways. That's not really, that's nice, and our staff is that. But what makes a church really great is wonderful, faithful people like all the ones we've talked about and countless more who take responsibility for something they care about. Yeah. And the ministry of this church is bigger and richer and fuller than it's ever been simply because all of those wonderful people step up and take charge of something. Yeah. That's why. It's not because I'm here now, you're here now, and we've got this team nope. That's not why. Mm-hmm. It's all of these folks who love the Lord and love this church. That's the difference. That's awesome. Yeah. Maybe we can end with this. I've been thinking a lot about what we're building for the next generation. Yeah. And along these lines, just thinking about this passage and your sermon on Sunday. What's better for
just thinking about what's better for our children to see in us, and maybe, I'm trying to have my kids be able to grasp this and see this in me. I have to be really creative because it is my job here. I'm a paid staff member, but let's just imagine that I wasn't, and I'm serving in, we're attending Broadway. What's better for my kids to see that, and because whether I ever say this or not, just the way this is true in a lot of things, the way I live and the way I act towards church and view church in my actions is going to be really what they grow up in their mind as.
Yeah, it helps form them.
It forms their priorities and just how they see their worldview, how they see the world, how they see the church. So what's better for them to see me just coming to church and having this mentality that other people do the things and I just come and I am a recipient and I receive the things that, they hear sermons and they hear me talk in youth group, they hear a leader talk in youth group that, God has a purpose for you, has a plan for your life. God has something glorious that He's invited you to be a part of. God is building this thing all throughout history. Yep. But then for them to see that played out in other people by, I just come and do something. Those things are opposed to each other.
Yeah, I just attend an event on Sunday morning.
So they're hearing God has a plan for you. Following Jesus, even in the mundane everyday life, is an adventure.
Yeah.
But they're not seeing that lived out. So what's better, that or for them to see? So say I wasn't working in church, but for them to see me, their dad, stepping up and saying, God's given me this giftedness. Yeah. God's given me a passion for this particular thing. Yeah. And I'm going to step up and do it. And not only can you pass that ministry and those opportunities, not only can your kids serve with you and you can pass that on, their legacy, but just that mindset, that biblical mindset, the church that we are building is passed on to the next generation. And they pass it on to their kids and to their kids.
Way better.
Way
better of a way to do it. I mean, we know the stats, and we've talked about them before. Right now, and it's been this way for a long time, roughly 75% of church kids walk away from their faith once they get into college and into adulthood. Once they're out of mom and dad's house, 3 out of every 4 church kids walk away from their faith for a time. The majority of them come back later on in life when they get married and have kids, but there's this whole season of young adulthood where they're conspicuously absent from church.
Yeah.
So, and every parent is concerned about that. Every church person should be concerned about that.
Yeah.
Because some of them don't come back. Well, what's the solution to that? Well, there are a number of things that can be done. What you're talking about, I think, tops the list. Because now, what you've now taught your kids isn't church is something we go to on Sundays. When we're in town, when we're feeling well, when we don't have a sports event, when the weather's not good enough to go out to the lake or do whatever, when we go to church, it's not that anymore. Now church is something we're a part of.
Yeah. I am part of the body of Christ.
Yes.
And guess what, son, daughter? You are too.
Yeah, we're all in this together. We're serving in these different ways. We're making a difference in people's lives. You want to make sure your kids hold on to the priority of church in their life. That's how you do it. Yeah. You set that pattern and example for them to follow, and more often than not, they're going to follow it.
Yeah. Because that's what deacons do.
How about that? Yeah, everything comes back to that.
Yeah, sure.
That's what deacons do. Yeah. I think that's why when I look at Acts 6, I say, this is better.
Yep.
There you go.
There you go. I don't know
and that's what about it. That's what we have. That's our conclusion. There you go. Well, John, thank you for stepping in for Guy, who sadly couldn't be with us this week. But we're grateful to have had you. We certainly could have a different kind of conversation because of our experiences together in church leadership. So thank you for your insight. Thank you for your wisdom and
happy to do it.
Thoughts about the text. And I'm sure the day will come where you'll get to come back again to the Everyday Theology podcast.
I get asked back?
I mean, you should put that on your resume. It will be the pinnacle of your career. That you got to be a part of this.
Are you saying I need to go find another job?
Nope.
Is that what you're saying?
Nope, not saying that either.
I'm going to go update my resume. See you later.
All right, thanks for tuning in. God bless.